Okay, good morning and welcome to Just Daf It, Daf Yomi Share led by the one, the only, Ben Sion Lang, yours truly. We'll be learning today Mesechus Yevamos, Daf Nun 50. 50 is important because Sphira goes 49 days, not 50, but you know what? The Gemara starts in Daf V's, so therefore it's the 49th Daf in Mesechus Yevamos. We are completing Sphira now. I want to weigh in on a controversy that's rampant in Klal Israel and maybe qualifies. Los sasu agudos. We learn in Yevamos and Daf Gimel. You're not supposed to make sex, sects, sex. That's what I said, not the other word. You're not supposed to make sex in Klal Yisrael, and one of the sects in Klal Yisrael has come over this minhag to count svira. Are ba yamim la omer or ba omer? Last night was asara yamim la omer or ba omer. It's not really clear. I think the Mishnah Berurah says you say ba omer. I actually got up to. I was here in the shul, not this year. In previous years, I gave a shir. I davened for the Amud for Marav. Unwittingly, I normally said ba omer. Unwittingly, I said la omer, and there was a whole tumult over here. A ruckus, people were going crazy. How could you say it? How could you do it? To say in our minion over here to say La Omer, not Ba Omer. You destroyed the minhag of Klal Yisrael, the emistic of minhag of Klal Yisrael. The Jews have been fighting for so many years to fight off, deprivation, to fight off terrible things that people have done to Klal Yisrael, and now you go and Klal Yisrael has a chance to redeem itself, and you say La Omer and instead of Ba Omer? How could you do that? Of course we say Ba Omer. But then you go to, let's say, where I come from, Maral Shul, they'll say La Omer. It's become divisive. La Omer, Ba Omer. What are they arguing about? What is the difference between saying Ba Omer and La Omer? And I think I figured out the difference. And based on that, I changed my minhag, even though Shabur says Ba Omer and Mike Hilo over here says Ba Omer, but I think La Omer makes more sense. Ba Omer is like a curse almost, and La Omer is a blessing. If you think about it, right? What is Ksiras HaOmer? La Omer, you're counting La Omer. They're counting from the Omer when they used to Ted Zion Nisan, the day we start counting, that's when they cut the Omer, right? The first new crops. They harvested the new crops, and therefore at Matir Chodesh, you're allowed to eat grain that was grown previous to that. I had shlish was grown before the Omer. It was the harvest, and Matir is it. Matir's Chodesh, and Matir is the new grain. So if you say Ba Omer, what is Ba Omer? Ba Omer in the Omer. Omer means the harvesting, or the way they used to do it was a sickle. They used to cut down the wheat from the field. So I would say Ba Omer, you're counting, what are you signifying? Sorry, I mean Ba Omer. In the cutting, in the harvesting, and the cutting, referring to the act of a sickle cutting wheat. That's what we think about it, right? And matir wheat, it's kind of, it's actually bought from, the carbon was bought from barley, but it matir wheat. But Ba Omer is you're cutting the barley grain. I mean, the cutting, it's almost like it's violent almost. You're remembering your whole Sfiras HaOmer is going back to the cutting, or the act of a knife or a sickle using it to cut through the grain. It's kind of violent. It's kind of depressing almost. You're counting a sad thing. But if you say La Omer is you're talking about what is the result of your cutting. La Omer, from the Omer to the Omer, right? The result is a harvest, is blessing, that you now get to bring a carbon from the barley grain, and now you get to eat the Chadash, you get to harvest all your wheat crop and eat the wheat crop. So if you say La Omer, it makes more sense. It's more of a blessing. Ba Omer is the violent act of the cutting. La Omer is in the harvest. It's blessing. So if you want blessing in your lives, say La Omer. If you don't want blessing in your lives, you want to suffer and to have precious in this world and never to take hana. Don't get pleasure in this world. It's the worst thing. It's taivas. Taivas is disgusting. Disgusting. You eat a donut, it's disgusting. Taivas. Only on Hanukkah we eat a donut. Every day on Hanukkah. But if you have 9 donuts on Hanukkah, then it's taivas. Only 8 all donuts. You only need a donut on Hanukkah. Cheesecake only on Shavuos. Never during Shabbos. Never during the week. Never cheesecake. You're only allowed to have a rugelach at Shalom Zachar. But if you have 2 rugelachs, it's a suffix bracha, and it's taivas. No, we're supposed to enjoy this world. Why from a negative, you know, I actually became a balabas. I turned 40 years old on Shvi Shal Pesach, April 22nd, my birthday. And I actually became a balabas, had a table. I was regaling the people at the table with stories of my youth. I have a different youth than most people would think for someone who's actively posting on YouTube and social media. I lived the life of, I would say, a gadol. Um, you know, I was deeply into Musar, things like that. I separated myself from the world a lot. Didn't speak to many people. Didn't eat too much. Um, I basically try to follow and emulate the ways of the Gedolim. And I'll tell you the truth, I suffered a lot. And it's a way of, it's a life of deprivation, a life of suffering. They'll tell you, no, it brings on Masikas Torah. Like the Chazon Ish says that the Avi Avos Hatuma is Achila Shal Taina. He says the greatest tuma you can have is enjoying your food, eating food that you enjoy, because it takes away from your Avos HaTorah. I don't know. I don't think so. I don't know. I eat a lot of foods that I like and I enjoy. I have steak. I have all kinds of chocolate, caramel, popcorn. I have all this stuff. Oreos. I don't have a problem learning. I like the Torah. So, anyway, we can talk more about this sometime. It's already 7 minutes in, so I've gone way over my allotment over here. Anyway, that's the difference between La Omer and Ba Omer. And should live a life of pleasure and not suffering. Um, that's my opinion. All right, the Gemara says in the bottom, Mem Tedam Abiz. The Gemara says, the Gemara was dealing with a stira, right? A seeming contradiction. What does it mean? A mispar yamecha amole, right? We see by, right? So by Moshe Rabbeinu, Hashem says, the allotted time I gave to you, that's it. You can only get the allotted amount of time. You can't live long. We know by Chizkiah lived longer. Chizkiah was about to die because he didn't get married, he didn't have children. And Yeshayahu gave him a rebuke, and he did tshuva. He prayed to the wall, and he did tshuva. He lived an extra 15 years. So maybe you can extra. The Gemara says tonight, it's Malos Tanaim Desanya. Mispar Yamecha Amole Elu top of Nunam and Aleph Elu Shnei Doros Zacha Mashlim Lo Zacha Pochson Lo Diver Rabbi Akiva says a person is guaranteed. They start out with 2 generations in their life. Generation 30 years, 60 years. You're guaranteed in your life. If you're Zocha, you get to fill 60 years. If not, less. And there are people, according to Rabbi Akiva, who live longer than 60 years, but no, maybe his generations are 60 years. Maybe Akiva's generation are 60 years, 2 generations, 60 years. Chum say, no, you could actually get extra years. So you see that Chamim are the ones that say you can get extra years. And Rabbi Akiva holds you can't get extra years. Amrullah Rabbi Akiva said, Rabbi Akiva, says, Shaul said to Chizkiah, I'm giving extra 15 years. Amrulahem, Mishalo Sifulo. He said back to them, no, he was already allotted those years. He just lost them, and now he got them back. Teda, Sharinavi Omed, Misnabe, Hene Ben Ola, the base David, Yoshiyahu, Shmo, Vadayan, Lonolad Menashe. Menashe, who was the son of Chizkiah, after he took the daughter of Yeshayahu and Avi and tried, because he didn't want to have children, because he saw in Nevu he was going to have a rebellious son. He did have a rebellious son, Menashe, who actually was a Rasha, but he said that's not right. You're not supposed to get involved in the stardom. You have the child. Torah commands you, Puravu. Anyway, before Chizkiah was born, there was a Nevuah that Yoshiyahu, who was the grandson of Menashe, is going to be born, right? And Menashe was only a product of those extra 15 years of life. So you see that already 200 years before this, it was known in Nevuah that Chizkiah was going to live that life. So it must have been he was a lot of those years. Rabbana Miksiv Chizkiah doesn't say from Chizkiah, this is the base David Ksiv. From the house of David, Chizkiah happened to be one of the people from the house of David. The Nevuah could have been kept either from Chizkiah or from someone else from base David. So he got an extra years according to Rabbanan, and it became fulfilled the Nevuah through Chizkiah. Isha Shemesa, Yevimto Shemesa, it says in the Mishnah, a wife who dies, you can marry the sister. Or Yevamos that dies, you can marry the sister. Amar Rav Yosef Kanchan, Rebbe Mishnah Sheina Saricha, Rebbe taught something unnecessary over here. Rashi says it was unnecessary to teach me that after your wife dies, you can marry her sister even after the Gerush. Tosfos says maybe a different shot, the whole clause of Yevama after she dies was unnecessary. Hard to understand that Rebbe taught something unnecessary. This could be a subject of Ben Sina. We're going to leave it because we want to get on to the next parak and talk about something else. Hadran ala Chacholitz, we have finished 4 prakim in Masechus Yevamos. That is a big accomplishment. Now I tell you the bad news. There are, how many prakim in Masechus Yevamos? I only have the second volume over here. I think there are 16 prakim. That means we are 1/4 of the way through Masechus Yevamos. But here's the good news. The good news is that there's only 122 or something blot in Yevamos, so we're almost halfway through Yevamos in terms of the dapim. So forget about the prakim. Let's go straight to the dap. Let's start the Mishnah. Let's start fresh, new. 5th parak of Yevamos. It gets a little easier. We're going to start talking about things that are not directly related to Yibum eventually. Now we are. Rabbi Gamliel, we're still talking about it. Rabbi Gamliel Omer Inget Achar Get V'lo Maimer Achar Maimer. Gamliel is a shita. All right, we mentioned that when you have the construct of Yibum, you have 2 options. We always assume, right? You have the option of Yibum and the option of Chalitza, right? But there's also 2 other things you could do. You could give a get in this construct, right? And Chazal said that if you give a get, that basically has the effect of Chalitza to a certain extent, is that it makes it invokes Asher Lo Yivna. Once you give a get, you can't do Yibum anymore, because it's like Chalitza. So therefore you can't do Yibum anymore. And there's also something called Maimer, which is like Kiddushin, you give her Kesef or a Shtar, which is a first step on your way to Yibum. And therefore, if you did Maimer, you need a get after that if you want to get rid of that, and you need a Chalitza to get rid of the full Zika. So Gamliel says, Ain't get achar get. Let's say there's 3 different cases. There's talking about 1 Yavam, 1 Yavam, or 1 Yavam and Shnei Yavamos. It was a co-wife. Or there's 2 brothers and there's 1 Yavama. So all 3 cases we're going to be talking about. Ain't get achar get. Once one of the brothers or once the brother gave a get, right, the second get is meaningless. This is talking about a case where there's 2 brothers, right? Or there's 2 Yevamos, 2 co-wives. You give a get to one, the second get you give to the second one is meaningless. What's the nafkamin? The nafkamin is that we said that you're usher to the krovos of the chalutza, you're also usher to the krovos of the grusha. So the second get according to Lila is meaningless, and therefore you're much to the krovim of the second one. Below maimer achar maimer, again, if you have 2 Yevamos, you do maimer to one, maimer to the second one. The maimer of the second one is ineffective, and therefore you wouldn't need a get from that maimer to the second lady. In order to get rid of the maimer, it's like a kiddush, you need a get for that. Chalitza doesn't work to just get rid of that. V'lo be'ila achar be'ila, v'lo chalitza achar chalitza. If you did bia to one wife, so bia to the second yivama is meaningless. You only require the first wife. The bia to the second wife is actually an aveira. You can't do that. It's really eshes ach, but it's ineffective. It doesn't do anything. You don't need a get for that. V'lo chalitza achar chalitza. If you do chalitza to one of the 2 yivamos, do 2 wives. The chalitza to the second one ineffective. The first chalitza already removed the zika from both yivamos. There's no need to do it. They say a get achar get does have effect, and there's a wood asr the krov. Maimer achar maimer, you need a get for both of them. After bia, you do bia in the beginning, and then chalitza in the beginning, it effectively ends the contract of yibum. Ketzad. So let's go back to explaining this. Asa maimer biyavimto. Let's say he did maimer. Let's talk about 1 yavam, 1 yavam. He did maimer. He did the kiddushin to the yavam. And also I'll get. And he gave her a get to ruin that maimer. A get, it's like a kiddushin. So the way you're getting kiddushin, you have to give a get to that. get rid of that. Tzricha imanu chalitza. You still need to do chalitza because chalitza you love the zika, right? A get never gets rid of the zika, only gets rid of the mimer. You want to get rid of the zika, you have to do chalitza. Also, mimer of the chalitza. Let's say you did mimer and then you did chalitza. Tzricha imanu get. Even though you did chalitza, and normally we're going to see chalitza is very effective. Even a chalitza psula, which is a chalitza psula, right? Because the chalitza is deficient, because you did a mimer over here, it doesn't fully remove it, right? So you still need a get because you did a kedushin. This is a little conspicuous because chalitza, if you give a get and then do chalitza, the chalitza removes. You don't have to do anything after that. But if you do mimer and give a chalitza, this is the discussion of Yom Ben Sion. If you do mimer and then you do chalitza, so then you still have to give a get to the mimer. It doesn't dissolve it, everything. That's going to be a topic of Yom. I'm going to discuss that a little more. Mimer of Chalitza Tzricha again. Also, mimer of ball. He did mimer and then he ball. Arezuk mitzvah. So this is the best way of doing it. Chazal said is that just like a regular kedusha, when you marry a woman, you first give her kedusha and then you do bia, you consummate the nisuin. Here also by Yevamos, they recommended that you do kedushin and then do the bia afterwards. That would be a normal mitzvah of Yibam. Nasan get vasa mimer. Let's say he gave a get. And then he did mimer. Tzricha get v'chalitza. So he gave a get. Now, once you give a get, that removes the ability to do yibum anymore. But then he did mimer, right? So the mimer has effectiveness. So you need tzricha get. You need the get to remove the mimer, and the chalitza to remove the construct of yibum. Not some get or bal. You gave a get and then bal. Now, once you give a get, you're already a shelo yibna. It's effective like a chalitza. And then he did a bia. He tried the yibum after that. Tzricha, the bia is ineffective. Tzricha get b'chalitza. You need a get for the bia. It's a bia. It's partially effective. It's called a bia psula. It's partially effective because you didn't remove the. You're still in the construct of yibum. But since you did a get before that, it is an isser. So therefore, you need to get rid of the wife. You need a get for the bila because bila affects a marriage. The chalitza, you need a chalitza to fully remove the marriage because it's not. He's not completely married to the woman. And therefore you need a chalitza because it'd be a psula. It's not a complete bia since you did a get before that. That's on get v'chalat. So if you gave a get and then did a chalitza, enach chalitza klum, because the get really is ineffective. All it does is make an isser that you can't marry, you can't do yibum. It makes it a bia psula. So therefore, once you do chalitza, it removes everything. Enach chalitza klum chalatz v'asa maimer. Let's say he did chalitza, and then he did maimer to the woman. Nasan get obal, or he gave after the chalitza, he gave a get, or he did bila. Or that's one case. Oh, Baal, let's say he did Yibum, lost a mimer, nothing gave a chalas. And then to the same woman, he did any of the following, or all of the following, did mimer, gave again a chalas, enach chalitza klum. This enach chalitza klum is referring to the first clause, talking about where he did chalitza first. Once the chalitza is done, it removes the construct of Yibum. Everything after that is ineffective. If you give a get or a mimer, it wouldn't aser the krov. The Gemara is going to discuss why it doesn't say the second clause, enach arbia klum, when really the halacha is that once he does gibam, nothing else is effective after that also. That's really also included in the Mishnah. Here we're going on to Daf Nun Amad Beis. Achas Yevama achas liyavam echad. Whether we're talking about one Yevama to one Yavam, right? There was one wife of the deceased brother, and only one brother remaining alive. Achas shtei Yevamos to Yavam echad. Or it would even work in a case where it's two Yevamos and there's only one Yavam. Ketzad, meaning he had a wife and a co-wife. Ketzad. Also, Maimer Bezula. How would that work out? He does Maimer with one wife, Maimer Bezul. And he does Maimer the second wife, Shricha Shnei Git. And only Gamliel holds, there's no Maimer Achar Maimer, but according to the Rabbanan, Maimer after Maimer is effective. So they just Maimer to one Yevama and Maimer the second one. It's like doing Kedushin to both. So you need Shnei Git and you have to remove both Maimers. Get to each one, and still there's a conscious of Yibum, and therefore you need a chalitza. Chalitza is only needed for one because we know once you do a chalitza to one woman, therefore it patters the second one, everything. One chalitza to the bias. Maimer bezu, your brother. Maimer bezu, Baal bezu. He does maimer to one, and he does Yibum to one. Strichel shnei gittin chalitza. He's gonna need two gittin, and he's gonna need a chalitza, right? He needs a get for the maimer, right? And really, you're allowed to do the mitzvahs, do mimer, and then ball that woman. But if you do mimer to one, that already creates, I'm going to say a little spoiler alert, that creates a kinyan yibum already to one. Therefore, you're partially attached to one of them already. Therefore, you can't be boel the second one already. You can only be bona bayis echad. You can't be bona shnei batim. You can't marry two. You can't do yibum to two of his wives. You can do yibum to one of the wives. If there's four brothers that died, you can do yibum to four brothers' wives. But if there's only one brother that died, he has two wives. You can only do yibum to one. So if you do mimer to one, that's the one signifying I want to do yibum to, and then you go and do yibum, your boel, the second one. Therefore, it's a bia psulo. You're not allowed to do that. It's partially effective, and therefore you need to give a get, two get them, one for the mimer for the first one, and the bia, the second one, is a bia psula. It's like a yibum, so you need a get for that. But again, it doesn't remove the construct of the yibum. The yibum is a bia psula. It doesn't affect complete kinyan, a kinyan yisuin, and therefore you have to do a chalitza to remove the construct of yibum. Mimer bezu v'chalitz lezu. Let's say you do mimer to one of them, and do chalitza to the other one. Arishon sricha get. Like we mentioned before, the first one needs a get for the mimer. And the chalitza to the other one obviously is effective, so therefore it patters the bias over there, the chalitza, but you still have to give a get to the mimer. Get lezu, bal lezu. Let's say he gives a get to one of them, and he's ball the other one. You can't be ball the other one. Again, once you do get, you asher lo yivna, you're already over the issue of lo yivna. Sricha get b'chalitza. You need the one he gave a get to, it suffices to give a chalitza, but the one who boel against a bia psula, so he needs a get for that bia psula to end like a false yibum, a half yibum, and therefore you have to give a get for that and a chalitza to remove the constant yibum. Get lezu, mimer b'zu. If you do give a get to one of them and you do mimer to the other one, sricha get b'chalitza. Again, you need a get for the mimer to get rid of the mimer connection, and the chalitza to remove the concept of zika. Get lezu v'chalitz lezu. If you did get to one of them and chalitza to the other one, chalitza klum. Again, you don't have to. Once you give a get to one of them, it doesn't really do anything. So therefore, once you do chalitza, it removes everything. It removes the concept of zika. Chalatz v'chalatz, or chalatz v'asa maimar. He did chalitza to one and then chalitza to the other. Or chalatz v'asa maimar. Or he did chalitza to one of them and did maimar nasan ghetto bal. And he did chalitza to one, and then the second wife he did mimer, or he gave a get, or he did bila, or baal, or he did yibum to the first one, and he did yibum to the second one, or baal v'asa mimer, or he did bila, he was baal. The first one he did mimer nasan get b'chalatz, and to the second one he did mimer or gave a get or chalatz. Einachar chalitza klum. Again, this is going on the first one. The chalitza in the beginning removes the concept of zika, and similarly, included in this phrase is that the bia, if you do the bia first to one of them, therefore you do a yibum to her and patters the other one, there's no need for a chalitza or yibum to the other one. And it's ineffective if you do it. Ben yavam echad l'shtei yevamos, ben shnei yavam l'yevama achas. So we just talked about the case where there's one yavam and two co-wives. Here, the Mishnah says the same would apply if there's two brothers and only one wife. Falling to yivam. Achas, chalitza asa maimer. If he did chalitza and he did mimer, nasan get, we're just basically rephrasing something we said already. Chalatz v'asa mimer, he did chalitza and then he did mimer. Nasan get ubal, or he gave a get and boal ubal, or he did bila first v'asa mimer, but nasan get chalatz. And afterwards, either with the second wife or even with the first wife, he did mimer or gave a get or chalatz. Ena chalitza klum, bein b'tchil be'emsav. So whether you do the chalitza the first thing you do, or let's say you do a mimer or a get in the middle, and then you do something else afterward, or even do the chalitza at the end. The chalitza exempts everything. The chalitza removes the concept of zika. The beila is a little different. When you do the bia first, right, you do yibum to one of them, or yibum to the wife. If you do a get or a chalitza or mimer after that, it's ineffective. If you do it in the middle of one of these acts, right, you do it in the middle, or you do it at the end, then it would, those things you do afterwards, right? You did, let's say you did mimer, or you did get, and then you did a boel, and then you did mimer after that. So therefore, you have to worry about that mimer against the bia psula. It's not a complete bia, and you have to worry about the mimer after. Nechemia argues on the Tanakama. He says that the bia at the end, even if at the end or in the middle, would pater everything legamre, and everything after the bia will be ineffective, and presumably even everything before the bia will be ineffective. Also, the Gemara says, "Akan lepligi ela beget achar get umaymer chamar." Gamliel and the Chachamim, they only disagree in two cases. When you do a get, and then you give another get, get to, let's say, to one Yevama and a get to another Yevama, or Maimer to one and Maimer to another Yevama. I'll get Echad Yevama, Maimer Echad Yevama Mahani. Let's say you have Shtei Yevamos. But if you did get to one and Maimer to the other one, both of them are effective. Even the Rabbanan, even Ragamliel would say it's effective. My time, Amar Rabbanan. So the Gemara says, my time, Amar Rabbanan, get Yevama Mahani. And the Gemara is really just focusing now back on the concept of Maimar, what exactly is Maimar, and get. So my time Amar Rabbanan get Yevama Mahani. I skipped the line here. Why do they say that a get by Yevama has effectiveness, that it works, right? You give a get, even though a get really is not appropriate over here. You need Chalitza or Yibum in a contract of Zika. If you do a get, that's the way to end a marriage, not the way to end the contract of Yibum, but it has effectiveness that it's Asher Lo Yivna, and it would be after that would be a Psula. Why does it work, Mahani? Why do they make it? The Rabbanan say that it has effectiveness. Mishum de Mahani Ba'alma. Because a get normally works other places to end a regular marriage. Yeah, Mar Lo Mahani, if you say that get doesn't work, Amri get Lo Tzia B'chalitza Lo Tzia. You say the concept of get is to remove a marriage, right? If a man's Makadish a woman, he marries her, he doesn't marry her, you need a get. The Chalitza is the moti from a Yibam, from a Yevama. When the get Lo Mahani, if we say that a get doesn't work, right, over here in contract Yibam, it doesn't work at all, and therefore it's ineffective, and therefore bia after would be a complete yibum. Chalitza nami lamahani. They'll say chalitza also doesn't work. Asi let me boil achar chalitza, and they'll say even if you do a chalitza, they'll come to people do a chalitza, and then with the yavama, and they'll be boil or afterwards. The boil afterwards. That's the answer of Ashes Ach over there, which is karis. My time Amar Rabbanim Aimer B'Yavama Mahani. Why do they say that Kiddushin by Yavama helps? Mishum the Mahani Ba'alma, because Kiddushin works elsewhere. The Amar Lo Mahani, if you say that Kiddushin doesn't work, Amar Maimer Liknos would be a Liknos. Maimer is a way of being Kona, right? By Kiddushin. The first Mishnah B'Zachas Kiddushin. You're Kona, a woman, Kesef Shtar would be a Kesef Shtar. Will be a Liknos, and Bia works to be Kona Yavama. When the Maimer Lo Mahani, if you say Maimer doesn't work, Bia Nami Lo Mahani, let's say by Yibum. Bia is also ineffective. Asin miboil achar bia. Even if he does a bia, he'll do a bia with another yavama. Right? A man died leaving two wives. He'll do bia with the co-wife. Again, that's an answer of Eishasach. My time Rabbanan bia psula yeshach klum. Why do the Rabbanan say that bia psula? Meaning, let's say you gave a get and then you did a bia. So the bia, it's a bia psula because you already did a get. You're not supposed to not allowed to do a bia after that. So what you do afterwards has significance. If it's a bia after you gave a get, because we're worried, just like chalitza and gittin are oftentimes confused. So therefore, if we say that the get is ineffective, then we'll say that after a person does chalitza, you could do bia, and that's not true. Once you do chalitza, you remove the zika and you do a bia. If it's bia after maimer, gzeira bia achar maimer, mishum bia achar bia. Again, maimer and bia are oftentimes confused. So therefore, if we allow bia achar maimer, let's say you did maimer to one yavama and you want to do bia to the second maimer, we allow that to work. That would be a problem. Bia achar bia, which is also, let's say, shtei yavamas, you do bia to one. Of course, you can't do bia to the other one. Another isra eishazach. My time of Rabbana hay chalitza psula. Why do they say that a chalitza psul? Let's say you gave a get, right, and then you did a chalitza afterwards, and the chalitza completely removes it. Amri, my ligzar. What's the problem? What should we go there? Nigzar chalitza achar a get, mishum chalitza achar chalitza. In the case where you give a get first and the chalitza afterwards, because chalitza and gittin are often confused, so we'll make a gzeira chalitza chalitza kol kihani tilchos tezel. Who cares? It doesn't have a chalitza after a chalitza. Doesn't have any effectiveness. You can do as many chalitzas as you want in the world. It doesn't do anything. Ligzar chalitza achar maimer mishum chalitza achar bia. Let's say he does a maimer first, and we should say the chalitza is ineffective because maimer and bia are continued mishum chalitza achar bia. Atu chalitza achar maimer milo baya get lamamaro. Chalitza achar bia nami baya get labia also. There's no problem with getting confused because even the Rabbanon will say that if you do a maimer and do chalitza, you still have to give a get to the mamoro, which we're going to discuss in the Ben Zion. So therefore, just like if you did, what are we worried about that a person will do chalitza achar bia? Also, you have to give a get labia also if it's a real bia, right, which made it's a real yibum, can you sue in a real yibum? So if you want to get rid of that marriage, you need a get. So you always need a get. So there's no confusion. You always need a get. So there'll be no confusion over here. This is the end of today's shir. I hope you enjoyed today's shir. Stay tuned for Yevamos coming up right now.